Hey guys, Jamie Lambert with sportsthreads.com back again. Episode number 2 this week. We got Lance Phillips with us tonight, graduate of Wellston. What year was it? Like 1992?
Not quite on that far.
Something like that.
No full football season, no 5 school year.
Hey, but yeah, me and Lance are going to BS around. Hope you guys enjoy it. And hope we keep getting some more likes and some more views. And then obviously tomorrow, like I posted earlier, we've got the senior class from Wellston's baseball players that'll be on. Lance, I remember, through all this coronavirus stuff, obviously there's been a couple beer chugging pages that we're both involved in. And, and the one, the one thing that, watching you in your MMA fights that have been on Facebook Live, and, we'll get into the high school stuff in a minute, but, my boys really took to you and thought it was exciting. And I kept telling them that I pinned your ass. Do you remember me doing that? You was 8th grade. I'm not going to say how old I was because I'd probably get in trouble for it. But I was a little bit older than you. But I did know that once I did at that time, that I wasn't grabbing back a hold of you anymore.
Hey, now you got to get it where you fit in. You know, you got to get them. You got to get the low hanging fruit when you can get it.
Amen to that. Hey, so high school career, you was pretty successful on the football field. You had Blackstone all 4 years, is that correct?
No. I never had Blackstone. Blackstone left after when I was like in the 7th grade, I think, and then the Lucases came in.
Okay.
So I had Lucases for 2 years. I had Victor Wallace for a year, and then I had Heath Hinton my last year. So I had 3 head coaches in 4 years.
Gotcha. Okay. And you guys were pretty successful.
I mean, we went my first 2 years. We went 8-2. We won the league. My first 2 years, we went 8-2. My last 2 years, we were 6-4 and 7-4. My last year, we were we were all right enough to make the playoffs. But in my opinion, the first 2 years I played high school football was by far the best teams I'd played on. I kind of thought every team I played on underachieved for no other reason than we didn't really know how to kind of maximize winning, and you'll find that better teams and folks that do things right, don't jump off sides, don't have that, like, for one reason or the next, the ball seems to bounce their way. You seem to get that one call or that one play or that one this or that one that's needed. And I think there were a lot of things that we could have did that would have been better at that. And playing in college, competing professionally, things like that, were you got to kind of take yourself out of the box to learn how to win. You know what I mean? I thought that was one of the biggest things I took from Wellston, is that, like, I need to take my success from here, which we did have success. I mean, playoffs, won the league a couple of times, but I always thought that, like, the furthest a team from Wellston has ever gone is game 11 in football. Literally, the only thing you have to do to be the best team in Wellston history is get to week 12, and the book shuts. That's it. If you can win a playoff game, you're the best team in Wellston history. And I really thought that we had, I thought we had the makes to do that, and it kind of slipped through our fingers a couple of times. Not to ramble, but
no, it's good. That's why we're on here. And that's I guess the interesting take on it, and it makes a lot of sense, coming from a guy that's
I mean, that's what it is. Win the league, win a playoff game. If you can if you can win put to you this way, I thought about this. Never once in the history of Wellston football has a team ever A, won the league, and B, made the playoffs in the same year.
Right.
If I were to talk to the football team or the coaches or whatever, that would be something that I would be harping on. Like, here's 2 things. Here's 2 goals. You want 2 hard goals for the start of next season that that if you do these 2 things, then you're going to have a great year. Win the league, and win a playoff game.
Well, the other day when I was on with Coach Smith, and I had Hunter, which is my nephew, which is a senior, and then I had Jonathan Garvin on. Yeah. When we got to the end of the interview, we were talking about coming off a playoff berth, this past season, high expectations and what their team goals were, and you hit the nail on the head. Garvin and Hunter both win the league, get to the playoffs, but that's not good enough. We got to win one, win two. Win one, win two. Once we get to the
I
playoffs.
mean, you'll find those sorts of success stories are very, very, you know what I mean, success breeds success. And the way that I want to illustrate that, like Wittenberg the team I played for in college is the winningest college. I mean, we're the winningest team there. In D3, we're the winningest team there is.
Sure.
Straight up. I mean, you can look at the
No,
record.
sure. I seen it on ESPN. 6-7 months ago, they were like top 5 or something like that.
Yeah, we've won a lot of ball games, and I mean, when it comes right down to knowing how to win and doing things like that, that place taught me a whole lot. Winning the league was one of our big things. We knew if we did that, we would be in good position to get to the playoffs. It wasn't until I got to Wittenberg that I realized what it was to win a game you shouldn't win. Like a game that you're not like that you're not only are you picked against, you're kind of being laughed at for it. It took me that long to learn how to do that sort of thing on the football field. So I think that one of the biggest things that Wellston could take from last year is seeing the level of talent that they saw in the play. They played hard in the first game.
Sure, right.
You can take that level of talent that you saw, you know what I mean, and ask yourself relevant questions about what we need to do to bridge some of those gaps. You're not going to do it in a year. You might not do it in 2 years, but you can damn sure get closer than you were from a 6-month period. You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain common sense things. Like it's only in the last year that we've learned how to go on 2. Amazed me.
Right. Well, once you got to Wittenberg, and I was going to ask on that. I mean, what was your guys' team success there? What did you guys have there when you was there?
Well, when I was recruited at Wittenberg, they told me, like, and keep in mind, I spent a week at Mount Union and I transferred over to Wittenberg. They swayed the ship for me, but I went over to Wittenberg and they told me, they said, we want you to be a difference maker. We feel like you could be a dude who could come in, and I did. I came in and I started from my freshman year on. I had a lot of injuries, but you know what I mean. I was a 4-year starter at Witt. I was a 4-year all-conference member. I played my last 2 years. I got all-conference first team twice on torn ACLs, or at least once on torn ACLs, and I had a total of 2 or 3 all-conference awards on torn knees. Just we didn't make the playoffs a couple of years, and then the last year when we were really nasty, you know what I mean. I had torn my ACL 4 times, and I was out there giving what I could. I mean, I was still in the 5-man rotation on D line, and I did get an all-conference honor that year, but I didn't. It was one of those things where injuries just kind of showed me. I mean, I kind of had to accept my position a little bit. You kind of have to be like, okay, this is my role. This is the best thing. This is the best help that I could be, and this is the way I'm going to go. And that year taught me a whole heck of a lot. We ended up 6th in the country that year. We did get beat by the eventual national champions in the 3rd round of the playoffs at Wisconsin Whitewater. I mean, to this very day, I'll maintain that if myself, Matt Gaida, and our quarterback don't get hurt, we win a national championship. We would have beat Mount's ass. We were really good. I mean, people that saw us play that year, we were not a Division III football team. Living at Wittenberg during the summer, bonding with your teammates, coming together with dudes from all over the country, be it Texas or Florida or Kentucky or wherever it was. We had a lot of good players, even at the D3 level. And being able to sneak away some of those guys from the bigger schools because of the tradition or because of the fact that you win is one of the little silver linings in a program like Wittenberg.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I've had several conversations with some coaches at Wellston and some other places about, it always seems like it gets, the word potential gets thrown around a lot. Like with Coach Briggs with the basketball program, for instance, the last couple of years. And, it's, kind of like what you're saying, about winning is, man, these guys got a hell of a lot of potential, but when, one, the coaches have to get it out of them, and 2, the kids have to get it out themselves and learn how to be winners.
The way I look at coaching is a form of economic expenditure. I feel like a coach should be able, like your function as a coach is to get the most out of your player with as little amount of you know what I'm saying. You're trying to squeeze the most with the least amount of pressure. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Slow is fast. And I've had a lot of different types of coaches across the board here. And the reality of the situation is I hate the word potential, and the word coach annoys me as well. I don't like potential because that's something that people find a way to rest on their laurels about. If you have potential, that means for one reason or the next, you can rest easier when you're eating your dinner. And as far as a coach is concerned, coaches are shitty. I'd rather have a teacher. I want a teacher. I want somebody that's going to master their craft and teach me something, ask me to wear another man's shoes and juxtapose myself in that man's profession. That's how you get better. That's how I approach fighting. I'm not a pure jiu-jitsu guy, but I do a hell of a lot of jiu-jitsu. I'm not a pure boxer, but I box a whole hell of a lot. I'm not a pure wrestler, but I will wrestle with the nastiest that you can find. For no other reason than if I get my ass whipped, I learn something. I'm willing to go through that possibility of great failure in front of people in order for the chance at a greater glory.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was headed when I brought up the word potential. So I think the one thing a lot of people get lost in with, or maybe don't know about you with your story is, wrestling when you was in high school. The wrestling program just started when you was, what was it, a junior?
Senior.
Okay. 1 year, just straight off the mat to coached along, and you had a pretty good year.
Yeah, rest in peace, Coach DeLong, the late great man himself. Coach DeLong was a conference champion at Baldwin Wallace University and was also a college teammate of Jim Tressel. Coach DeLong has a pretty cool story himself there. He's coached wrestling for a lot of years, and there's a lot of fun stories about him. He was a hard ass. He taught me, in the amount of time that I wrestled, I mean, a wrestling season's 4 months? I didn't have a lot of time to master a whole hell of a lot of things. I got good at a few things, and I stuck to my guns. I could do some things at my weight class that not a lot of other kids at that weight could do. I was, you know what I mean? I'm more athletic and a bit faster than more heavyweights usually are. I was undersized at heavyweight, but I used that speed to my advantage. I was the first kid in the 68-year history at that time of the Ohio State wrestling tournament to ever go to state his first year and place in the top 6 at heavyweight. So that was something I held dear. I did something that nobody had ever done my first year doing it. I wrestled the eventual state champion. I almost knocked him out with a headbutt. What's up? Eventually I did get pinned by him. There was one match I wrestled. The kid's name's Cameron Wade. One kid that I wrestled that I just wasn't in the match was a kid named Ryan Bowers. He was from Navarre Fairless. Now, for the state wrestling tournament, you get a 5 or 6 pound allowance. And I was wrestling freaking 230, 235. And this big son of a bitch came in there. He was 281 all the way over. It was like wrestling a freaking Coke machine. That's exactly what I told the Columbus Dispatch when they interviewed me too. It was just like wrestling a freaking Coke machine. You couldn't get your arms around the kid. You know what I mean? It was just, there's learning experiences. But that a funny story about wrestling, and I've told this to a couple of the kids at Wellston that were, in dire straits at one point or another. I was not going to go wrestle at sectionals. I was going to go take the ACT and take the bitch way out. And my old man and my mom both called me a pussy. So I went and I wrestled sectionals, and I pinned my way through sectionals, and I won districts, and I got a number 1 seed at state tournament and ended up 6th in the state. And after I got out of there, I got back to playing football. And after I got done playing football at Wittenberg, I got called. I felt a call back to the mat. I started training. I started doing stand-up, and I just eventually found myself in a cage. Wrestling opened up a lot of doors for me, but to this day, I love to wrestle. I still wrestle. It's something I've always taken to. It's something it's a language that everybody speaks, but not everyone understands. It's a language that everybody understands when it's spoken, but not everybody understands every nuance of it. You know when a takedown happens, but you don't know how it was set up.
Right.
I wanted to know.
Right. Well, and that leads me into your the last 3-4 years into your MMA career. If you want to touch on that,
Well, keep in mind, I've been fighting for 10 years. I just didn't let anybody know about it for the first long. I just come home with black eyes and broke noses, and people thought I was just screwing off. You know what I mean?
Right.
And people thought I was going to the bar. It was like, no. I'm going to a 4-walled room where your ass has to sign a waiver to even come inside. I mean, as far as the last 3 or 4 years go, I'm anticipating fighting more in pro boxing, fighting more in pro MMA. I'm a purple belt now in jiu-jitsu, and I mean, my jiu-jitsu coach is the best guy in this area of the country. If Vitor Oliveira is the top-ranked guy in the Masters right now, look him up. Ask your mama about him. Straight up, Ronin Training Center, Columbus, Ohio. Fold you up like origami, bitch. But I mean, as far as the training my last 4 years, it's been a constant grind towards something greater. I mean, I've traveled around. I got to, my wife was running a marathon in San Diego, and I got the opportunity to go down and train with Alliance MMA in Chula Vista, California for a week. I still keep in touch with some of those guys that I train with. I mean, I've been up to, like, I've fought a kid, Alexa Kimura from Strong Style. He was the only kid that beat my ass in amateur. I'd love to fight that dude again at some point. I mean, obviously he's in the UFC now, so I got some room to make up before that. But I've went up and sparred Stipe at Strong Style with Dan Spawn, and I've had a bunch of times just going up to the Immortal Martial Arts Center in Polaris. Like when Matt's getting ready for this last fight before it got canceled, I was going up, and I mean, me and Matt were just trying to fucking kill each other behind closed doors. These sorts of things are situations you have to put yourself in order to grow, in order to get better. In order for me to grow, I have to go drive by myself, leave my family, and go fight Matt Brown to test myself, to make sure that I'm on the right track. And it is indeed like fighting the devil.
Right.
A lot of the way that you grow. A long time ago, fighting was explained to me as being comfortable where you are uncomfortable. And you have to constantly seek out areas of discomfort and lay and revel in them.
And I think that has a lot to do with, I mean, it makes a lot of sense in what we're talking about, but even, as far as scheduling, the way when it comes with any type of sports, I mean,
there is no off season for fighting. You have to choose your own off season. If you don't choose your off season, it's going to crumple you into a fucking fine powder. And look, you have to be able to set your own milestones. Like, this isn't like rec league basketball. It's not like anything you could ever imagine. The highs are very high and the lows are very low. There's nothing more orgasmic and essential to your manhood or alpha that you've ever felt from having your hand raised in a cage amongst hundreds of people that you just kick somebody's ass. And there's also this flip side of that coin. I have been the dude that got knocked out. Not all of this is winning. I've been the dude that look, after you get beat in a pro cage fight, nobody wants to hear about your fucking weight cut. Nobody wants to hear about if you were having cramps that day, or if you had a piece of your tooth fall out in the pre-fight meeting, or like, nobody wants to hear about whatever excuses and I get it. I don't make them. Like a lot of those excuses are meant, like, the other guy came in and executed. What the hell did you do? And I've been on both ends of that coin. And it's a very costly coin. You know what I mean? The day after your fight, sometimes there's still a hospital visit. You know what I mean? I don't know. The highs are very high and the lows are very low. The peaks and valleys are very, very, you know what I mean? It's hard to see the forest from the trees, to know that the sun could get that that you get that bright, or the night get that dark. But fighting, I've always been a little bit too much for people. And in a lot of ways, be it school or football or extracurricular, whatever. And I didn't know why until I started fighting, and things started clicking for me. And then why I was at home in a sort of chaotic melee situation when others weren't. It took me a long time to realize why fighting lets me, like, it gives me a way to be calm. You know what I mean? Sure. It's one of those things that kind of let me know, simply because you can does not mean that you should or you must. You have to have the presence of mind within yourself as a man to say no or hold back or fighting like that. That discipline can be applied to literally everyday life, even eating too much or drinking too much, or one of those things you have to think about.
Right. Well, you mentioned your family earlier. How's things going there?
Oh, good Lord, we're getting by. I mean, hell, my wife's still working right now. I got my one kid to bed. My toddler's down there. We're going to get her to bed as soon as I as soon as we can. But my wife, like, look, they declared me an essential employee for selling beer, but I mean, my wife is actually an essential employee. She works for Hickman Pharmaceutical, and I mean, she's making sure that a lot of places get their opioid addiction medication and shit like that. There's a lot of serious stuff out there. Like, my wife can straight up look at what they're depleted of and see what drugs they're looking to try to experiment to cure COVID with, or what, you know what I mean? There's dudes out there that are trying to, people with depression meds, folk with opioid addiction, like all things like that. She's trying to get their meds out to them. So, I mean, at this point, my wife's doing the strongest possible flex. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to, like, I'm nanny.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I guess one last thing that actually, when we first talked about getting on here and talking, that was probably the most important thing that I wanted to ask you. Obviously, getting this website started, we're kind of focusing more on Wellston athletes, just for the main reason, connections from my perspective.
Right. Hey, man, I appreciate it. I think that there needs to be more of a light shined on there, because the reality of the situation is that I looked, and 4 years after I graduated high school, I was the only one playing college football. I always thought that was a travesty. I mean, we've had players go since and do good things, but there needs to be maybe if a greater light shine, then people would take greater pride in going other places and crowing the name louder.
Right. Well, and that's I guess, to wrap things up, I'm sure, football players, like I said, we had almost 300 views yesterday on the Wellston football interview. So if you walked in the locker room, or a baseball team, football team, a wrestling team, and you had a 30, 45-second spot to talk to a Wellston athlete that's going through where you've been, what would you say?
I would say that we talked a lot about Wellston pride back in the day when I was in school, and what the hell makes you so proud right now, and what are you going to do to make yourself proud tomorrow? I would say that everybody talks about Wellston being a shitty little town, but the only way that you're ever going to know how significant it is after you leave. And the impact that you have on the world that, comes after this is largely going to be shaped by where you came from. Is it going to be a positive interaction, or is it going to be a negative thing? Now, when you come back here, are you going to be able to look on things fondly? Because if you move on to a different part of your life, you want to be able to look back on things and be proud of all of it. Because you're eventually at some point in your life going to encounter some form of nostalgia to where you want to go back home. You want to do this. You want to enjoy that. I think it's important that people try to treat Wellston as something that they can come back to later. Maybe not something – it doesn't have to be as beautiful in practice, in sight, in tangibility when you touch it as it is in your mind's eye. I had to learn what Wellston was after I left. I thank these hills every day for making me what I am, because these hills made us tougher. You sit in between Jackson and Vinton County for a reason, because you're nasty.
Right. And they, I think a lot of, I use when I get in discussions about Wellston, the word entitlement comes up a lot and what I mean by that is I think that a lot of our student athletes, a lot of our even people in the community, I think that it's totally opposite of what you're saying, and I think that's kind of one of the one of the shadows over it is everyone feels like they're over.
Well, I mean, as far as entitlement goes, I mean, you're always going to look, man, when it comes right down to it, you're always going to have, I mean, folks that want things to be easy. I mean, not everybody's always just out there on that competition mindset. That doesn't hit everybody the right way. What I would say is that I don't know whether to tell you that people that I went to school were different or not, because I don't know. Now, I mean, I will tell you that we had Brad go to OU, but they had Jalen go to Northwestern. I mean, they had Austin go to Ohio Dominican. There's been a lot of players around here that have And of course I count Austin as a Wellston guy. I count all the Osborne as Wellston kids.
Right.
Come fight me. And,
Right.
and when it comes right down to it, that's a tough thing to answer because everybody's going to have a different opinion of entitlement sitting in their living room. What I would say is that when I went to school, there was one ball, and we had numerous people who wanted to carry it. So at one point or another, you're going to have to work that out.
Right.
Not everybody can be the star. Not everybody. Look, in my opinion, I always thought I was one of the best players out there, but I didn't get the ball. It was my job to move people out of the way so that somebody else could carry the ball. I was never going to be as good at running the ball as Thomas or Rex. So part of this, some of it's just being honest with yourself about who you are. When I was in college, I took a course that one of our athletic professors taught that was also a coach at Wittenberg on athletic success and coaching and things like that. And she showed us a video of a meeting that one of the most successful football coaches in Pennsylvania had with his parents every year prior to the season. And it was essentially just to go down the list. He said, I want you to be a positive athletic parent. And in a very calm and reasoned way, he just went down the list of basic things that parents can do to be positive parents and give their kids good messages and essentially get with the program. Because the reality of the situation is that a coach can preach till he's blue in the face. If the kid goes home and hears the opposite message, who's he going to believe? Who's she going to believe?
Right, mom and dad.
Right, mom and dad. Because and let me go ahead and tell you something. Who the hell ever sees this? When it comes right down to dads and moms sending out tape for college, I've heard it from the coach's mouth. Unless it comes from a coach, it doesn't get looked at. Because every dad thinks his little Johnny or Jane is, the best little player in the world. So you do have to do things right. And there is an etiquette that needs to be followed in order for people to get noticed. And butting in front of people in line isn't the way to do it.
Right. Well, Lance, I appreciate you coming on with us. I think we had a good talk, and if you would just hang out with me once I hit record or stop recording, we'll have a beverage if you got one.
It's a deal, Bubba.
But again, tomorrow we'll have the Wellston baseball team on. I hope everyone comes in, checks us out, sees us. Lance, again, I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure some of our listeners appreciate you being on. It's good to hear from you, man.
Man, Bubby, I appreciate you. I love Wellston. Always have.
Thanks.